Um, we hope everybody had great weather wherever you were, Galway or not. Um, so before we get started, I just want to give a few housekeeping um, uh, items. We will be recording this event for posting, so please turn on or off your cameras as you feel comfortable. And I'll let our teacher, Pa Sheehan, explain about the questions when he comes on. Before we get going, it is important for us to acknowledge that we do come to you from the Haldimand Tract, which is land that was promised to the Haudenosaunee of the Six Nations of the Grand River, and is within the territory of the Neutral and Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. As we endeavor to keep the Irish language alive, we are mindful that our neighbors here on Turtle Island strive for the same, and we support them in reclaiming their original language. I should say languages, sorry. And now I'd like to introduce Pa Sheehan. He is our teacher this evening, and he is the Ireland Canada University Foundation Irish language instructor at the University of St. Michael's College at U of T. He's originally from 6 Mile Bridge in County Clare and was not raised in Irish, but has developed a love for the language. And this love for Irish has taken him to the University of Montana, where he completed a year as part of a prestigious Fulbright scholarship before beginning the ICUF journey to Memorial University of Newfoundland and then moving to Toronto this year. And most importantly, I need to point out that he is a big Hurley fan. And if you have never watched Hurley, I highly recommend it. And Paul will probably touch on that at some point this evening. But and with that, Paul, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. And thanks very much for inviting me today. I really, really appreciate it. It's the benefit of having Zoom, I suppose, at the moment, and being able to do things like this much more easily than coordinating a big, massive event. So it's great to be able to do it. Yeah, huge hurling fan. And I hope there's people in the group that are huge hurling fans as well. And we can talk about it someday and watch a game or whatever. But not right now, but eventually in the future, we will be able to. Yeah, just in terms of the layout of the class, it'll be an hour and a half. The whole plan of it is to teach you the basics of the Irish language, and I'll get into that. But just in terms of class etiquette or whatever, Zoom etiquette, I suppose, the benefit of Zoom is what I like is that because it's a beginner's class, a lot of the stuff you'll be saying is brand new sounds, brand new things. And if you're muted, that's fantastic because you'll be able to repeat exactly what I'm saying back to yourself or to the person beside you, or to whoever's in your house. And you can do it as many times as you want until you get that sound right. Because at the end of the day, language is a skill, and it's a physical skill as much as it's a mental skill. These sounds might be new and might be sounds we've never made before. And you wouldn't ask someone to ride a bike if they've never walked before. So it's kind of, we need to move up the steps a small bit, and it's the exact same kind of thing. So I'll ask you to make those sounds to yourself and repeat after me. With your mute on. What I will do at times is I'll put you into groups, breakout rooms, and there you'll be able to mute yourself and practice talking to each other, actually speaking with another person as opposed to speaking to yourself. So there will be opportunity for that. So that's what we're looking at. I'm just going to share my screen here, which I can't do at the moment for some reason. Can you give me access to share my screen, please, Sue, if that's okay?
Yep, let me fix that for you.
No problem. Take your time.
Just give me a second. Sorry, I'm just going to have to do this.
No problem.
Okay, you should be good there.
Still not allowing me for some reason.
It's not? Okay. We'll do this.
Oh yeah, that should work now.
Okay.
No, still not. There must be something.
Okay.
There must be something on my end that's not allowing that.
All right.
There we go. I have it now. I have it.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah. There we go. I just had to remove this for a second, and that's okay. Okay. Perfect. Oh Jesus, no! It's not after allowing me again for some reason. Sorry, I'm not sure what's happening.
Okay. I'm going to root around here and I'll find out.
No problem. No problem. this hasn't happened before, so I'm just. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, that's working.
Perfect. Don't know what happened there. I apologize.
That's
Yeah, so here we are. An Gaeilge, the name of the language, and I suppose that gets people's back up sometimes. It's generally referred to, if you're speaking English, it's referred to as Irish, but I find in North America, it's referred to as Gaelic, and there's no difference whatsoever in it. It's just, it happens to be the word we use to describe it, An Gaeilge, that's the Irish word for the Irish language, and that's generally what I'd refer to it as well. And Tá fáilte rót, you're all very welcome to the class. As I should have said at the start, Tá fáilte rót. I was just literally talking to a friend earlier on, and because of the pandemic, obviously I haven't been home in a while, in probably over 2 years now, and it's kind of, it used to be something I used to love when I was coming home, flying into Shannon Airport, is seeing fáilte, just the word fáilte, or seeing the road signs that had the bilingual Irish and English, and I'm sure there's people in this group that can recognize that. I love living abroad, but there is something nice about flying home and seeing Irish written on a road sign, or seeing fáilte written at the airport. So Tá fáilte rót enough. We're going to learn a couple of phrases, so I just encourage you to say them to yourself at home. And the way I teach is, you will hear the word and say the word before you see it written down. Purpose of that is, these words are words in a different language, and they're not designed to be pronounced like they're English words. People often tell me, oh geez, I have a friend called Siobhan. That's an unusual name. And it's like, you wouldn't say Cristiano Ronaldo is an unusual name. It's just a Portuguese name. It's kind of this thing, we tend to associate everything with being, it's compared with how it would be in English, and that's not what we're getting at. So it might be frustrating for a while, but you will see it written down eventually. So first of all, diaguit, and everyone probably knows that already, diaguit. And I would introduce myself as saying, Ismisha Pa. Ismisha Pa. And just looking at some of your names, you'd have Ismisha Margaret, Ismisha Kathleen, Ismisha Christine, Ismisha Steve. Diaguit, Ismisha, I am Pa. Diaguit. And we'll get to the pronunciation and things like that in time. So just keep repeating that back to yourself. Diaguit, Ismisha, whatever your name is. And I'll send Sue the slides after this class as well, so you don't have to take anything down if you don't feel like doing so. Just before I go into it, I just want to give a bit of background to myself, although Sue already gave it. So I'm not from an Irish-speaking area. I'm not from a Gaeltacht. I'm from Sixmilebridge in County Clare, English-speaking area, very close to Limerick City, very close to Shannon Airport as well. And I grew up speaking English. My mother and father speak English, and I am unusually a success story of the Irish education system. That I actually came out the right side of it, and I just developed obviously an interest in the language, and now I'd speak it. Even living in Toronto, I'd probably speak it as often as I speak English on a daily basis, because of my job and because of the people I associate with as well. So I kind of like to think I can understand the difficulties that people have learning the language. So, as opposed to being a native, I actually struggle to teach English sometimes because I'm a native speaker, and I can't understand why someone wouldn't get that. But I think I understand with Irish. What we'd like to be able to do today is basically, there's a lot of different things here. So we'll try and do that as well as we can. If we can get all this done in an hour and a half, that'd be very successful. Say hello and respond right down to being able to describe someone's phone number. So there's a lot going on in an hour and a half, but we'll try and have a bit of fun with it anyway. And again, for people, and I apologize if I'm belittling your intelligence here at the moment, just in terms of the knowledge you might have about it, but the green is the area where the Irish language is spoken natively amongst native speakers. I'm not from that area, like I said. but they are definitely some of the most beautiful parts of the country. And when you are visiting or going home, try and visit those parts, even just to immerse yourself in the language. I think they're the best parts of the country. I won't get into that too much. So, deal with, like I said, literally means God to you. And people often ask me, what's the point of learning any language if you already speak one that all your friends understand? And I use this example. It's a very simple example, but the very first thing you learn in Irish, deal with, and you figure out what it means, you realize, okay, well, there's obviously a religious connotation here. The country is obviously heavily affected or influenced, should I say, by religion. And I think that is something that we can learn from one phrase. So imagine how much more we can learn if we learn more about the language. And if you lose that, then you lose that kind of insight into how languages work. I don't speak Japanese, but I'm fairly sure that in Japanese, the end of a lot of sentences will be the most important part of the sentence. And as a result, people have to be very patient when speaking Japanese. And to me, any Japanese person I've met tends to be very polite, patient people. So it seems to reflect itself. Incidentally, in Irish, we have a thing called the copula, in which the most important part of information comes at the beginning. So maybe we're not the best listeners in the world because we get everything out at the start and the rest is just raw mate. Deal with. The response, dia is murugwit. Dia is murugwit. Again, you can tell how religious we are. Not only do we want God in our salutations, but we'll have Mary as well. Dia gwit, dias murugwit. I have the pronunciation aids there. To be honest, they can impede people as much as help them. Depends what kind of learner you are, just to help you with pronunciation. Dia gwit, dia is murugwit. And because this isn't a linguistics class, we won't worry too much about the pronunciation and spelling for today. So that's your response. So every time you see, I'm looking at Margaret there, every time you see the gentleman beside you for the next week, deal with, and he'll respond, dias murugwit. And, same for anyone else living in your house. Ke tosa is a question I might ask someone. Ke tosa, if you just met them for the first time, who are you? Ke tosa. And I would say, like I said earlier on, is misha pa. Is misha pa. Ke tosa, is misha pa. Literally, I am pa. So you just replace your own name. It's Misha Kathleen, it's Misha Ruth, it's Misha Kez, whatever that may be. Ke tosa. I teach this before I teach what's your name. The reason I do so is that is misha pa is a very how would I say, it's a structure that's used in the Irish language a lot, and it'll help you a lot going forward if you're someone who wants to proceed with learning the language. So it's not just for the sake of it. It's misha pa. When I was teaching in Montana, my students got this. We were getting class hoodies, and they got that sewn onto the hoodie. It's misha pa, because I think I used it so often. To go, when we got to advanced stage, I kept going back to that structure. What's the first sentence I taught you? It's misha pa. Cod is anamdit. Cod is anamdit. Cod is anamdit. That's when we want to know someone's name. Cod is anamdit. And we are going to get to practice all these in a bit. Cod is anamdit. Pa is anam dum. Pa is anam dum. So you might say, Steve is anam dum, Mary is anam dum, Margaret is anam dum, whatever it may be. I have the Coke bottles there because I distinctly remember, I think I was in secondary school when they came out, and to get them with your Irish name in it was a huge deal for my friends who had Irish names. If Coke knew we existed, and surely it wasn't just in Ireland. Pass. And I said I was in Newfoundland last year, and the amount of Siobhans and Aoifes I met in Newfoundland in particular, I was amazed. Spelt the way they should be spelt as well. It was great to see. And their parents wouldn't even have been Irish. We're talking generations removed from settlers, but yeah, great to see. And for people wondering here, I've underlined dit and dum. Trying to translate directly into English is going to hurt your head, and it's not the most efficient way of going about this, because you can, but in terms of direct translation, it won't always work. Codisan and ditch does mean what is your name. The you part in the sentence is in dit, so it's incorporated into the word dit, and then in pas and dum, the me part is incorporated into dum. So it doesn't work word for word translations, because English and Irish are completely different language families. It wouldn't make sense for that to happen. So you just put your own name in. It's Anam done. So we're going to have a little conversation. I'm going to put you in groups for maybe no longer than 2 or 3 minutes. Maybe meet someone. I can feel the nerves settling in among some people already that they'll actually have to speak this. And I'll try and copy and paste this, so at the very least it'll be in the chat, and if you're struggling you can just read off that. There we go. So one can be A and one can be A. So I'll try and put you in groups of 2 for even even number. I apologize if people don't like social interaction at the moment, but this is the closest we're going to get. Yeah, so it'll be 2 or 3 in each group. So you should have an invitation to the group now at the moment. I'll keep you in there for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll see you back. The people that are left, I'm just curious, have you received invitations for a breakout room? If you don't feel like joining, that's okay as well, obviously. Okay, excellent. I think we've everyone back. It's always a good sign when most people stay in the groups until the very last second. Excellent. So we'll move on from that conversation. Conas atatu. Conas atatu, another phrase a lot of you will be familiar with. Conas atatu. How are you? Conas atatu. and we'll look at potential answers. We're going to learn 4 different ways to say how we're feeling, which is more than most Irish people are able to describe what their feelings, but that's probably that's for another day. Conas a tátu. So, and I do apologize for moving through slides too quick. Like any language, there'll be many ways to say the same thing. We could have a whole class on describing how to say how are you. You know, Ken to Conas tátu, Gajamar tátu. That's not my job today. I want you to be able to understand the basics. So without going into too much detail, I'm just making you aware that, you know, you could learn Conas tátu, and then go to Connemara, for example, and they might say, Kenchi will too. And all of a sudden you're like, what did I learn Irish for, you know, X amount of months for? So that's just to skip over that. So a couple of different ways to describe ourselves. Conas tátu, you're going to start each one of them with tá me. Tá me. And we're going to look at 4 different ways based on these little smiley faces I've made here. First one, I'll get you to repeat them at home to yourself. Tá me go maith. Tá me go maith. Tá me go maith. And the reason this is a prime example of why I like people saying stuff before they see it written down is a lot of not so much with Canadians. I found a lot of Americans in particular were obsessed with pronouncing THs. I don't know, was it like a hangover from when they were in school? So I've heard this pronounced gomath a lot. Gomath, TH is like a H in Irish. The next one, tá me go húntach. Tá me go húntach. Tá me go húntach. Go húntach. Might be good, and then go húntach would be like excellent or very good. Go húntach. Tá me go maith, tá me go húntach. You'll hear that pronounced go híntach as well, depending on where you are in Ireland. Maybe you're only ceart galore. Ceart galore. Tá me ceart galore. Ceart galore. So only all right. Okay. Ceart galore. You'll see that abbreviated to CGL in a lot of emails and text messages. Tá me go maith, tá me go húntach, tá me ceart galore. And hopefully none of you will be saying this today, but you could say tá me go donna. Tá me go donna. Tá me go donna. Tá me go maith, tá me go húntach, tá me ceart galore, agus tá me go donna. And I'd always encourage you to use, you know, whether it be smiley faces or a thumbs up or something better than English to realize what they mean. It's hard for us like adults to do that because we forget that when we initially learned our first language as babies, we didn't have another language to keep translating back into. So we just figured it out for ourselves. You know, our parents looked out the window and they said window, and you figured out that that particular object meant window. Like, you know, you didn't need to respond back to another language. But it's very difficult to do as an adult, and it does take practice. So there are the 4 ways to describe our feelings. And we're going to practice these now in a second. And I do apologize if I'm going too fast or too slow, but we'll try and get as much practice in as we can. One thing I wanted to focus on, without going too much down the linguistic route, is that in Irish, people who've studied it at all will know this, that broad and slender are Latin agus quail. So we have 5 vowels, similar to English. We have 3 broad vowels, A, O, and U. If you look at them, they look physically broad, A, O, and U, compared to the more slender vowels of I and E, skinnier vowels. These vowels will determine the pronunciation of a consonant. Okay, again, we could do a full class in this, but we're only going to spend maybe a minute or so. For example, the word donna, the O and the A there are essentially pronounced the exact same. They determine how the D and the N are going to be pronounced. So D could be pronounced broad, which would be duh, or slender, di. In this case, O is a broad vowel, therefore it's pronounced like a broad consonant. So do. N is the same. Donna. Godonna. Contrast that with I and E here, who basically have the same pronunciation in the word misha. Misha. So M-I, mi, S-E, sh. S is pronounced like SH in Irish the vast majority of the time. And if you've met anyone from certain parts of Galway or Mayo or Sligo, they'll still pronounce most S's like their SH's when they speak English. They go to school and study and things like that. So just to be aware of that, that there's a reason the words are pronounced the way they are. Irish pronunciation is extremely consistent in comparison to English pronunciation, which is one of the most confusing of any languages that I've ever studied anyway, along with French possibly. Okay, so on the screen I'm going to show you 4 images, and as you see them, just say what they are. And then each one I'm just going to remove one, but just say the 3 that you see on the screen. This is repetitive, and it's just to sink it in. So I'll say it out loud with you as you're saying it at home to yourselves. Go húntoch, ceart go leor, go ma, go donna. And I'm going to remove one each time and try and say the one that's removed. So each time I remove one, try and say which one I removed. Go húntoch. Go donna. Ceart go leor. Okay, so that's just something you can do in your own time, just to familiarize yourself with the feelings. When I was playing hurling at a fairly high level back home, we had this app that we, instead of just always monitoring our physical feeling, maybe our heart rate or our GPS, we used to note how you were feeling emotionally on that particular day. I think it was on a scale of 1 to 7 or something like that. But it was images like this, how you're feeling, and so if you ever got injured, you could look back and say, well, maybe it was because of this, maybe why are you feeling like this and that. But I thought it was very good, basically. Gorav Mahagot, Gorav Mahagot, Gorav Mahagot. Lovely phrase. Like, we all, when we go to foreign countries, tend to try and at least find your basic phrases: hello, goodbye, and thank you, for when you're in a restaurant or in a bar or getting a taxi or whatever. Gorav Mahagot, regardless of who you meet in Ireland, you say this to them. If they've done something nice for you, it'll be appreciated. Gorav Mahagot, abbreviated to GRMA a lot, because people are just inherently lazy with languages, I suppose, in emails and things like that. Gorav Mahagot literally means may you have goodness. Gorav Mahagot. We'll look at another mini conversation here now. Can anyone tell me what the writing in red means? August tú féin. You can unmute yourself and tell me if you wish, or just write it into the chat.
And yourself?
There you go. And yourself.
That is yourself.
I do. Yay! You should do it.
It's a fantastic tool to know this in any language if you're learning. So, if someone's asked you a question, you're able to answer it, but you can't remember how to ask it back. August tú féin, August tú féin, August tú féin. So we'll listen there to Margaret and the gentleman beside her, who I could assume is her husband, but maybe am I assuming correctly? Can we just hear this conversation between the two of you? So
okay. Good as a thought too, Robert.
Tá mé go híntaach. Agus tú féin.
Tá mé go mai. Gorav Mahagot.
Perfect. Anéasca, Gorav Mahagot. Excellent. So just nice little tool, August tú féin. In any language, if you can learn and you'll You won't control the conversation, but at the very least, you'll be able to keep it going. I was too fain, and yourself. Perfect. If you've just met someone for the first time, whether it be even on Zoom, I find it funny, being introduced to people now. Oh, it's nice to meet you, even though it's on Zoom. But eventually we will be meeting people in person again. And what you'd say to them is Tá sé go deas búla leat. Tá sé go deas búla leat. Now this is actually probably the most complicated phrase we're going to look at today. Tá sé go deas búla leat. At the end of the class, I will give you a list of, I suppose, letter combinations that produce sounds in Irish. So for example, EA is pronounced like a all the time. So dias, as. U or UA is pronounced like ua. So bula, lat. There's EA again in liat. So it's the same sound, a. And they're not the only ones we're going to look at. We've already looked at a couple already. And because they're consistent, 99% of the time you see them, they'll be pronounced the same way as you learned them today, which is nice compared to English, as I keep saying. If you look at the OUGH in English, for example, if I just give a couple of examples. Like imagine, I don't know if anyone here is a second language English speaker, but imagine having to learn OUGH, 3 different words. True, oo, thorough, o, cough, off. Like, how do you explain that to someone, And people try to tell me Irish is complicated. Okay. When we're ending any conversation, we'll obviously have to say goodbye. So slán, slán leat, slán leat, slán leat. Literally, safe be with you, be you safe. We all say it to each other now when we leave, be safe, look after yourself. The Irish language has had that incorporated into it for a long, long time. Slán leat. Mind yourself. That's what my American friend said to me once. He said, if you were to just overhear conversations between grandmothers or even mothers and sons and things like that, you would assume that there is absolutely no confidence in the son whatsoever. Look after yourself, mind yourself. May the road rise to meet you. May your day be. It's always, almost as if there's an element of luck involved, and I think that says a lot about the Irish culture and the Irish people as well. The way our language is set up. Okay, so we have a core here, a conversation. So what I'm going to do is, there we go. I am going to, basically the conversation is there. Some of you are in groups 2 already. If you're not, try and translate the conversation yourself out loud. No need to do this written down. Out loud, almost if you're talking to someone else. And I'll put up the Irish every couple seconds just to see if you're following along. But try and beat me to it. Try and beat me to it with the Irish. Okay, hope you're going along nicely with that. And I have the second half of the conversation, I think. Just finishing it off. You can make up names if you wish. I've just added in Padraig and Maura there. Perfect. So nice little conversation. The basics of any good conversation. Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you, and goodbye. Simple as that. Okay, we're going to look at the numbers now. So we're about halfway through. So what I hope to do now is to look at phone numbers. The numbers 0 to 10 at the very least, and then being able to describe your own phone number as well. People love learning numbers in a language because it's something you can incorporate into everyday life on a regular basis. So that's what we're going to look at now. So before I show you the numbers, I want to get you to repeat them out loud before we look at them at all. So just alone to yourself: a hen, a doe, a tree, a caher, a cuig, a shea, a shot, a hooked, a knee, a de. And I'll go a bit faster. A hen, a doe, a tree, a caher, a cuig, a shea, a shacht, a hooked, a knee, a de. Okay. Just to pronounce them before we see them written down. This is what they look like written down. I forgot to mention annoyed for 0, which we're going to need for phone numbers. There you go, Deirdre. I hope that answers your question. Annoyed. The numbers are fantastic for helping us with different sounds as well and different letter combinations, which again I'll look at the end of the class rather than doing them in the middle. But there's a couple of fantastic examples. A hen, for example, teaches you that A-O is always pronounced like A. So a hen. That's just one example. Or A-O-I is pronounced like E and knee. Some dialects will pronounce that as an A, and that's fine as well. No dialect is superior to the other, in my opinion anyway. A hen, a doe, a tree, a caher, a cuig, a shea, a shacht, a hooked, a knee, a de. Agus annoyed. What you'll find here is you'll recognize a lot of these, but then using them yourself, you'll forget, and the ones that tend to be forgotten the most are a caher, and then a shacht and a hooked as well, for some reason, in my experience, tend to be forgotten the most. But you'll find that just the more you use them, same as anything, the more they'll stick. Okay. Okay, we're going to look at actually using them now in terms of describing someone's phone number. I'll just let people take it down for another second or two. I actually have a video here. Like at the end of the day, if you're learning Irish as a beginner, you have to be able to treat yourself like a child, because you're at the stage that a child is learning the language. So sometimes that helps. And people love songs. At the end of the day, we all think of the alphabet in the song that we learned it in, if you think about it. So it's the same thing. So I'll just put on this. It's only about a minute long, I think.
The Poetry is Mrs. Sinead. Today's I Know Irish song is Aaron Iverka, the number song. A hain a do a tree, to me in mahi, a cahar coo a shay, don't make a bonte. A shock, a hook, a knee, a da, a nish, to me ta. Phew. Slán.
I have been.
No, she's not going to be winning any Oscars or anything, I was saying, but she'll, it does help. It genuinely, like as I said, like I, to this day, still do the alphabet in my head in the language, in the song that I learned it in. So it definitely helps. And if it helps you, use it, is all I'll say. And that's just the lyrics written down. You can call them lyrics. A hain a do a tree, Tama in mohi. 1, 2, 3, I'm sitting down. A cahar a cuig a she, do me cup on tea. 4, 5, 6, I drank a cup of tea. A shock, the hooked, a knee, a de, a nish, Tom, a te. 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm tired. Now I'm warm. Now I'm hot. So she went like that. So again, if it helps you, then use it. By all means, use it. So I've left these up on purpose, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to call out mobile phone numbers of 3 different places. So I have these from when I was working in St. John's, and I'm going to call out mobile phone numbers. So whether you have a pen or you have even an actual phone and you just want to type it in, but don't ring them, you're going to take down their phone numbers, basically. So I'll call each one out 3 times, is what I'll do. 3 times in a row. So I'll call out St. John's Avalon Harps GA Club 3 times in a row. Right, maybe we're in a pub or something, it's loud and you have to repeat. I have to repeat myself. A cuig annoyed a she annoyed a hooked a she a cahar a do. I'll go again. A cuig annoyed a she annoyed a hooked a she a cahar a do. And one last time. A cuig annoyed a she annoyed a hooked a she a cahar a do. Shohi an iver. A cuig annoyed a she annoyed a hooked a she a cahar a do. Okay, now the BIS. A shocht annoyed a knee, a shocht a cuig a cahar, annoyed a cuig a shocht annoyed. Second time. A shocht annoyed a knee, a shocht a cuig a cahar, annoyed a cuig a shocht annoyed. And last time. A shocht annoyed a knee, a shocht a cuig a cahar, annoyed a cuig a shocht annoyed. And here we go. A shocht annoyed a knee, a shocht a cuig a cahar, annoyed a cuig a shocht annoyed. And I will do the last one, the most important one, Shamrock City Pub in George Street in St. John's. I think they're probably still doing it because I don't think COVID is that bad there. But I think on Mondays they used to do Muggy Mondays. I think you get essentially 2 pints, I think, whatever that 32 ounces or whatever it is, of whatever beer they had. I think it was $5 or something like that. But only on Mondays. A shot, a nod, a knee. A shot, a cuig, a hooked. A cuig, a car, a hooked, a tree. A shot, a nod, a knee. A shot, a cuig, a hooked. A cuig, a car, a hooked, a tree. A shot, a nod, a knee. A shot, a cuig, a hooked. A cuig, a car, a hooked, a tree. Agus seo í an iver. A shot, a nod, a knee. A shot, a cuig, a hooked. A cuig, a car, a hooked, a tree. You'll find there's probably numbers that you're consistently making mistakes with, and it's probably the same numbers over and over again. Bingo. Yeah, we could have played bingo, all right. That could be the next night, maybe. And exactly, you're trying to incorporate it, like if it's bingo, if it's when I was learning French in school, I was obsessed with getting the numbers. So I would, I would look at car registrations, and if there was 4 numbers, I would try and say them in French as quickly as possible. Just whatever way you can do it. And then once you do the time, you already discuss the time in the language that you want to learn. Things like this, you kind of become a bit obsessive about it. And they reckon numbers are, for spies in different armies, numbers are if you meet a fluent person, you're not sure if they're a spy or not. If you test them in numbers, that's when you figure out, because it's very hard to go back. I have friends who would have studied, they would have learned numbers as a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old through Irish because of the school they went to. Now they live in London and Melbourne, and they're working in accountancy firms, and in their own heads, they're still doing all their maths through Irish because that's how they learned it. They learned all the equations and things like that. So it's fascinating. So it is difficult. I appreciate that, but practice makes perfect. Clock da yin and mástrucht. No. So we also want to be able to actually ask someone a question when we're using the phone numbers. So the question would be, Cad I diver phone? Cad I diver phone? Cad I diver phone? You could just say Cad I diver. Phone is probably a bit more formal, but it's there too. Cad I diver phone. What is your number? Iver number. MH makes a V sound in Irish. We don't have a V because we have a couple of letter combinations that already make that sound for us. MH is one of them. Diver phone. D apostrophe for you, your, should I say? Cad I diver phone. Because being able to say your number is one thing, but you're also expected to be able to ask someone else, I suppose, their number. Cad I diver phone. And the answer, sorry about the way that's presented there, it's kind of hard to read. Is I whatever, miver phone. Is I a cuig an the she, blah blah blah, miver phone. Miver phone, my number, miver. You could just say it out as well, of course. You could just say a cuig an the she, blah blah blah. But I think it's nice to say it's nice to teach you the full sentence anyway. Is I miver phone. We're going to practice that now in a minute or two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these sentences into the chat, and you guys are going to be in groups of 2, maybe 3, and you're going to take turns trying to translate them, basically. So I'll put them into the chat now. And I've stopped sharing on purpose in case you're wondering. Okay, so those 5 are in the chat right now. I'll put you into groups and just take turns translating them and maybe swapping every second one or so. Okay, so the groups are open and I'll see you back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back, Margaret. They're all just in their breakout rooms, so they'll be back in a minute or two. You're muted there, so I can't hear you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Hi, Pat. Great to see you. Sorry
Nice to
about that. We were out earlier and we're on our way home, but we had to stop and get the beginning of it. And now we're at home. So
No
yeah.
bother. No bother at all.
yeah,
Nice
I'm
to have you.
really enjoying it. You do an excellent job.
Good. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear people enjoy it, because there's probably a lot of Irish expats in the group that would have learned Irish at some stage. So
I know, but donkeys years ago. We have our one and only, actually our oldest grandchild right now in Boston is
right.
almost 4. And so we try to teach her. I have a couple of Irish books that I read to her, but she can count to 10 and she knows cúpla, and she's got a little boy doll that she calls Bukel. And and now she's about to have twin siblings.
Okay.
So they're both male. So we're saying, okay, now, Evan, what's the name going to be?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
That's great to hear, to be honest.
Yeah, it's great. But so you're in Toronto, and so thank you so much for doing this for us. I mean, it's just brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad we got that. We missed the walk home part of it, the run home. But really enjoying it, and it kind of gives me an idea too of how I can work with Evan and with my new grandchild here, who's only 4 months old, and my new twins who will be born in July, twin grandchildren.
Excellent.
To kind of just give them a bit of that as well. We were back in Ireland, in Galway, oh God, many years ago now, on sabbatical. And our kids, 2 of them were in primary school and one was in secondary school, our eldest. I should tell you the story about our youngest, Devon. He was playing hurling in Galway and being taught by a guy from Clare. And they didn't have to wear their uniforms when they were playing hurling. They could wear whatever, so he wore Cormac Bonner's shirt. And the guy, his teacher, who was brilliant, he says, okay, lads, now there's 2 things you have to remember when you're playing hurling. The first is you never take your eye off the ball. And the second is you never cheer for Tipperary. Yeah, it was brilliant. We had a great year back there. And Maeve, who's now down in Boston, went all the way from, in the space of a year and caught up with her class in primary school in Irish.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. It was lovely. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful language, and it's just amazing. It's so poetic.
I agree with you totally as well. Yeah, geez, that's a funny story, right? He should keep those jerseys.
Here's the other Bonner, the guy who's not a hurler.
Hi, Pete.
That's
good
to
How are you? How are things?
Good.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. I'm not too bad at all. No, I'm not too bad. How are you getting on?
Good.
He's the old fart.
Yeah, I'm the.
He's the eldest, actually. Yeah.
The elder lemon, as they say, in relation to hurling.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
From Cashel originally, isn't it? Is it Cashel?
Cashel. Donegal parents. Both Donegal parents.
I was thinking with a surname like that, because your man who's over the Donegal team the last couple of years has the same surname. Can't think of his first name now, but yeah, Bonner, all right as well. It's an unusual.
Yeah, we're Donegal.
Donegal parents.
They
were blow-ins.
Myself and my sister were born in Dublin because they married in Dublin, and then we moved to Cashel, Tipperary, and that's how the Bonner name got associated with Tipperary and Tipperary hurling.
Nicey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have the rest of the group back now, so I might go back to the class at that right.
And looking forward to the next one too, Pa.
No matter. Sound. Fault your Asha Carja. We'll show you the answers now and see how correct we were, basically. That's what we're going to look at. Gonna talk to Tommy Gama, Gorov Mahagut. It.
Sorry, Pa. I think, are there still people in the breakout room?
No, they should all. They're all back because the room is closed.
Back now. Okay.
Yeah.
There was
Oh.
someone named John. We couldn't hear him in the breakout room, and he couldn't hear us, so we couldn't work with him.
Yeah, he might not have joined the room, Ruth.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
All right.
Happens.
Yeah.
Coddy did her phone, and then I tried to get a phone number that had all the numbers in it. So I have it all spelled out. Ooh, sorry. Cahara Hain Shea, and Nia Do 3, and all the Kuiga shop the hook.
And what?
Could you pronounce your phone number again?
The one that we're looking at right now here.
Yes, number 6.
I see a Cahar, a Hain, a Shea, a Ni, a Do, a 3, a Noid, a Kuig, a Shacht, a Hocht.
Thank you.
Miver phone. Yeah.
Miver phone. Okay.
Iver bit. Okay, so we just got we have 2 more kind of halves of a conversation left to practice, to get as much practice in before we break up. So I have a conversation here, either Padraig August Clár, and I'm going to put the whole conversation into the chat. So someone take the role of Padraig and someone take the role of Clár and try and translate it into Irish, essentially. And that's the last thing we'll do before we come back as a class. I see eyes bulging, looking back at me, people thinking this might be difficult. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So I'm just going to stop the share again, and I'll put it into the group. That's the first half. And there is the second half. Perfect. So I'll put you back into your groups. I'll try and put them in groups 2 for now. And if you find you're doing well and someone else is struggling, help them out as much as possible. You'll benefit a lot from helping someone else out. If you're the person struggling, ask for help. Okay, so we should have 2 people in each room. And they're open now. And I'll see you back, guys, in about 10 minutes or so. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, now they're open.
My brother and sister-in-law are graduates of the University of Montana.
Geez, that's some coincidence. Who am I talking to? Kathleen, is it?
Kathleen, yeah.
Are they from Montana?
No, we're actually from the Pennsylvania area. Actually, my sister-in-law is from Havre, Montana, and my brother ended up going out to school out there and met her there, and they got married. So that was back in the 70s.
Is it a large Irish population in Montana?
I know.
Yeah, like the university is in Missoula, is the name of the town, but the city, but the bigger Irish population is in Butte, Montana, which would have a very. Find an article here. I'll put it into the group. I know you can see my screen.
Yeah, my brother lived there for a while too, and he was writing for the Montana Standard.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The most Irish town in America.
Well, there you go.
Wow.
I just put the article into the chat there, so it's like even just that line there is made up of descendants of counties from Cork, Kerry, Donegal. Yeah. Small. It was at one time. I think and this is also a fantastic article as well. It's a mining town, a copper mining town. It was at one time.
Yeah.
The biggest source of civilization west of the Mississippi. Before they found gold in California, it was one of those places. Where the Irish just came, took it over, and said, "This is ours." And yeah, fascinating place. And in terms of landscape, just doesn't get much better, to be honest. Okay, I'll just go through this conversation quickly and see if you got any issues. I'll just put up all the answers. And there's only one new thing I'm going to allude to, so I'll go through it. Diaguit, Dias Moragut, Conas Tatu, Tomic Magar of Mahagut, August Tu Fain, Tomic Carcalor, Cadasanum Dit, Clarasanum Dum, Cadasanum Dit, or she could have asked Cadasanum Ditcha. This is for emphasis. We might do this in English sometimes. My name is, what's your name?
Dit.
And then Padraig is anam dom tá sé go deas búla lat a chlár, tá sé go deas búla latsa a Padraig. So again, that latsa is for emphasis. It's not necessary, but it does happen a lot. If you've already been asked the same question, to just put a bit of emphasis on the you part of the question. So that's that part. Anyone have any questions on that?
How do you say yes in Irish? Shay and Nihe?
There's that's the best question I've ever been asked. There's no word for yes in Irish. So essentially, you refer to the verb. So I'll just get out of this a second. You refer back to the verb all the time. So for example, if I were to ask you, are you eating a sandwich? I'm eating to blah blah blah. You would say, ew. Were you out last night? On rev to a rare, the answer is V, which literally is just the response to on rev. So you always refer back. It'd be like saying in English, were you out last night? I was out. Will you go out tonight? I will. You'd never say yes and no. People will tell you that sha is yes in Irish. And I'm just going to clear up that myth as quickly as possible. So sha, the correct way of spelling sha is like this, is sha, but just over time it's been merged together to become sha. And it can only be used when when you're asking as a noun. So for example, if I wanted to ask, how would I say this? Is he a teacher? Or are you a teacher? Muntior is teacher. So I would say on Muntor 2, and the answer would be sha. That's the only time it can be used. And for some reason, people have started to use sha as the way for saying yes all the time. Sue is right there. So it's kind of, we don't have the word yes. It never got. Sorry, Ruth?
What's no?
So the no in this example would be niha.
Niha.
But again, that's only in a very specific instance of Irish. Like otherwise you would have to say, were you out last night? V, no would be ni rev. You have to refer back to the verb all the time. So I hope that.
Wow. That's so unusual. Isn't that an unusual thing
Yeah.
for one language never to have a yes or a no?
Yeah, it explains a lot, I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah, the Japanese don't have no either.
there you go. So yeah, I like you'll hear people saying sha when they're talking, and it's like people do use it for yes, but it isn't accurate, I suppose, to be used as yes. I think it's just it's a hangover from English, instead of saying yeah, because we say yeah sometimes just to let the other person know we're listening. Yeah, I get you. But sha has replaced that, but it doesn't actually serve that purpose. So hope that answers your question.
Niha.
So Pat, I had a question on Slánlat, and people respond Slánlat is to, but it doesn't seem right to me. It seems to you need to say Slánlat with kind of another emphasis or something.
So, for example, if one person is saying slán and the second person, is that what you're referring to? Sorry.
Yeah, if you say slán, I guess then you say Slánlat, right?
Yeah, I suppose, like, technically there's two ways of saying slán and slán. So I tend to avoid this, but Slánlat tends to be said to the person who's leaving, and slán agat is said by the other person. To be honest, like if you were to analyze people speaking, I would assume the vast majority of people just say slán, and they may say Slánlat, but the vast majority of them don't say slán agat nowadays. But I didn't want to go into too much detail on that, to be honest. Okay, perfect. This is just the second half of the conversation. Cadi diver phone. She is shocked and ná the ní dó hop the hen a trí car go go sé miver phone. Garach magot is see whatever miver phone. Garach magot Slánlat. That was a complex enough conversation to be practicing if this is your very first time studying Irish. So well done. Pat yourself on the back for doing something new, challenging that you hadn't done before. And I'm going to send these slides, so hopefully they'll be disseminated amongst you as well. I have a separate slide just on the sounds. So for example, if you see an A fada, you'll know it makes an A sound, things like that. So this isn't every sound in Irish, but it's all the sounds we covered tonight. A, E, O. They're helpful, but they're helpful because they're consistent, the vast majority of the time. So these are all the sounds we would have looked at today. Even something as simple as TH is just pronounced like a H, just learning that can improve your pronunciation so much. And the vowels tend to be the most confusing, vowel combinations.
Is there some way we can print this and print the phrases and the translations, or can you send it to us by email?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to send all the slides, so then you can print it yourself, if you wish.
Oh, hallelujah! Because I'm way behind the rest of you.
No problem.
Way.
No problem. There's a couple others there as well. So I think that's all. I've a list of dictionaries that online dictionaries that are helpful, and some of them are so detailed that they might be too helpful if you're a beginner. For example, so just use them if that makes sense. This last one, Logan and Punkai, is for place names, so it's not a dictionary as such, but it will only work for place names. So if you're from a particular part of Ireland, you can figure out the place name, what it means in Irish, and even more information than that, and the rest are for words and phrases and things like that. I have Quizlet is like a little, what would you call Quizlet? It's a language. It's not a language. It's a learning tool. And I just have this particular topic that we did today. If you click on that link, you'll be sent to it, and it'll just help you with phrases. It's almost like flashcards, but they're virtual, so you can play around with that yourself in your own time. And I think that is. Ooh, sorry, I clicked on the same link again. I think, yeah, that's all I'm going to share. So if we have any questions, guys,
Nice one.
No problem. Jump in.
What does Pa? Is it short for Patrick?
Yeah. It's short for, it's pronounced Pa. So it's
Sorry.
your grand. It's short for Patrick. Yeah, my grandfather would have been Pa as well, and my birth cert says Patrick and my passport says Patrick, but neither of my parents even call me Patrick, so it's just Pa.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions, guys?
Thank you, Pa. That was a great evening.
No problem, Brian. Thanks very much. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
For
Would we survive in the Gael talk with this?
no problem.
I doubt it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You've pronounced Gweet 2 ways, Gweet and Deet. Which is the right way? Go round.
They're both right.
Okay. Gweet and Deet.
And I'll just show you briefly how they're both right. So, and this is just this is a common question that will get asked at the beginning. So if you go back to Diagwit, so in Old Irish, before the language was standardized in the 1950s for the very first time, there would have been a H here because of the word dia, which means God. It's a noun, so it would have caused an omission here. So the H, DH in Irish is pronounced like G usually. So Diagwit. When the language got standardized, that H was removed, but the pronunciation remained.
Diagwit. Thank you.
So Diagwit. But then in the other sentence that I would have taught you where it's pronounced dit.
Dit.
Here, yeah. So there wouldn't have been. And you'll often hear people pronounce that ditch as well. So they'll really emphasize the T, Cadasanum ditch.
Oh, Cadasanum ditch.
Yeah.
Is that right? Ditch?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Just a harsher pronunciation of it is all, yeah.
Cadasanum ditch.
That's what my family in Donegal would pronounce it like that.
Yeah.
Cadasanum ditch.
Yeah. There's lovely dialectical differences between the languages, between the different dialects. And it's nice, like even, Tome go ma, and someone in Donegal might say Tome go moi.
Yeah.
Moi.
You get used to it. You get used to it the same way you get used to listening to another accent in English. Like you just get used to it over time, and eventually, stop the share again.
Paul, Pa, you said you were out in Newfoundland. Did you find a difference in the Gaelic out there?
Yeah, I found Newfoundland's funny. Like, so I found obviously the way they speak English in certain parts is obviously has come from the Irish language, no doubt. The Irish speakers I met out there tended to be similar to you guys. They were Canadian born and were relearning Irish. So unfortunately, the last native speaker of Irish who was born in Newfoundland died in 2008. Ali O'Brien was his name. Very fine articles written about him. And it would have been interesting to see what dialect, because most of the people who settled in Newfoundland were originally from Wexford, Waterford area. I'd assume that that's where their Irish would have kind of came from, is the pronunciation from that area.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Do you find there's like a renewed interest in it? There's that, that guy that does Mother Focal, he does modern kind of Irish language. Do you find there's been a resurgence in interest in that?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like obviously I'm exposed to it because I work in it every day. But I was on a call yesterday. I think there was about 80 people on the call. It was for International Women's Day, and it was organised by the Irish Fulbright teacher in Washington DC this year. And so what she did, she organised 6 young Irish women who work with the Irish language or live with the Irish language, just to talk about their experiences. They were all in their early 20s, I'd say. And they were just, it was fascinating to kind of, most of them live from when they wake up in the morning till they go to bed in Irish, like even though they might live in Dublin or Belfast and I kind of have that, like I speak Irish at home here, even in Toronto with my partner at home. Obviously I speak Irish every day at work. So just the resurgence, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but there does seem to be, through social media, a newfound interest in learning Irish, and in just not even learning it, but becoming aware that it exists and that it's something very much to be a part of, and to like at the very beginning of this lesson, you referenced the fact of the land that we're on belongs to I can't remember the group, the Native Peoples land. It's kind of something like that, something that people are just becoming much more aware and of these diverse languages and things like that in Ireland and outside of Ireland. But yeah, I would agree there's definitely been a resurgence, a much more positive resurgence, and that can be maybe thankful to the Gael Scoilna the last couple of years. So you've a lot of people fluent being produced, for the lack of a better word, through the system, that they're not fluent because they like Irish, they're fluent because it was just normal to speak Irish, as normal as it was to speak English. So yeah.
Yeah.
And are you finding a resurgence in Ireland as well, or more kind of us offshore people?
100%, like 100% in Ireland, yeah, definitely.
Oh, good.
You'll meet people who, and it tends to be a generational thing. Like, you meet people who will tell you that they studied it and didn't like it, or it wasn't for them, or like you'll always have the kind of go-to answers. Either it's the way it's taught is definitely one. It's the teacher was bad, this and that. And I'm not saying people create opportunities for it. If generations of learners failed to learn it, then something was wrong with the system. All the students couldn't have been wrong. So I do agree with that. Yeah. But there's definitely, I think people forget, like, the famine was less than 200 years ago. The British Empire only left 100 years ago. People forget, like, we're a very new country who literally, as much of an effort as you could put in to removing a language and a culture was done, and it's still pervaded and it's still persistent. So the fact that it exists at all is amazing, and the fact that I think it's thriving is even more than amazing. So that's my opinion.
I think Brian Friel also did a lot to sort of bring that back into focus, the idea of the lost language and the beauty and the poetry of Irish in translations, specifically in his play translations. The most beautiful play. It's one of my favorites, but I think he did an amazing job of sort of bringing that back into the spotlight again, I think, in modern Ireland through his plays and specifically through translations.
Pa, there's an interesting thing. Just over 100 years ago in Canada, private members' bill was introduced in Parliament in Canada because there were so many Gaelic speakers from Ireland and Scotland. A private members' bill was put forward to make Gaelic the third official language in Canada, after English and French. So that's documented. There is documentation to that effect. I've actually seen it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how popular it was back in the day. Yeah.
Wow.
Immigration.
Sorry, I think there's another person. Amelia has a question as well.
Did they speak Gaelic in County Tyrone?
Tyrone. I would say Irish is spoken everywhere in the world if you go looking for it. But in County Tyrone specifically, it's not an Irish-speaking area as in a Gaeltacht, but there are definitely people in Tyrone that speak Irish. There are schools in Tyrone that only speak Irish. And Tyrone, anyone I know from Tyrone are very, very proud Irish people as well, and proud footballing people for the most part. So there is Irish in Tyrone, definitely.
Thank you.
Ruth, you have a question? And you're muted there, Ruth.
What is it like in Ireland with your elders who are really very good at speaking Gaelic? And I'm wondering if they are teaching the young ones now. I mean, is there an elder, younger kind of connection with people who are very, very good at it with the young people?
Yeah, I would like. That is one thing I often I'm just reading a book now with a group here at UT, Craig the Killer. So it's a novel that was written in the 1940s by Martin O'Kine. We're reading the translated version in English because it's not a language class, it's a literature class. My point is that the book in its initial form in Irish is unbelievably complicated and complex because of its wealth of language is so it's just so broad, like it's crazy. And you could argue oh, it's an awful pity people don't speak like that now and they'll never speak like that again in Irish. And people have said that to me, you know, like it's kind of the language has been modernized. You know, you're listening to kids in Dublin speaking it in their schools, and that's the way they talk. And there's an influence from English and all this. And I definitely agree with that. But then, like you read Shakespeare, like people don't talk like that anymore either. Like, so this happens in other languages too. But I see your point, and I think I don't know. It's funny sometimes. Have you ever met someone and they speak almost as if they're older than they are or younger than they are? Like I have a friend who talks like he talks exactly like his father because that's how he learned his Irish from. And it's unusual too. Like Irish is unusual to English in that regard, in that one person can have a massive influence on your life compared to English. Without going on too much of a tangent, there's probably people in this group that are Irish and have had kids born here in Canada or the US, and the kids have Canadian or American accents, which, you know, if you didn't know linguistics, you would say, well, how does that happen? Should they talk to their parents every day? But it's the majority have the. So what I'm saying is basically is that Irish is in an unusual position that it would sadden me greatly to hear people not teaching their kids at the very least the language, because you can have much more of an influence in a minority language on the way your child speaks and what your child speaks than, you know, if it was a majority language such as English. I don't know, that didn't really answer your question, but it's the best answer I can give.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I just wondered if they employed the elders in the schools to come in as sort of master Gaelic teachers to help with the young ones, just so the young ones can learn from the elders. I don't know. I guess I was just wondering how they're transmitting their the Gaeltacht, the language. It's in every school though, right?
Oh yeah. Like it's completely, yeah. It's in every school, and it's I suppose every teacher at primary school level would have to be fluent by definition in the language and to be able to teach it, and then it's obligatory then in secondary school as well. At the moment, anyway.
Okay. No.
Well, is there any other burning questions? I know we've gone a little bit over, but I'm excited to see how engaged people are with learning this. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
I would really like to have a recording of this. I don't know how to do it. I don't know if I have your permission, but I need to hear this 50,000 times to catch up with the rest of you.
Yeah. We have recorded it, and Pa, if it's okay with you, can we share it?
Of course. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Awesome.
Lovely. Thank you.
I can post that for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to say go Ramahaga to Pa. Slánala. Thank you, everyone. That was great fun. I learned a lot. I can go try it on my partner from Donegal, see what he thinks.
Yeah.
You're welcome to come back Thursday. Pa's going to come back on Thursday. It's going to be a little more, a step up, a little more intermediate, right? Some phrases and that.
Yeah, it's phrases on just fun stuff, basically. So you could come along if you've no other Irish, but yeah.
Okay.
I already signed up for that, and I
Perfect.
would really benefit if I could get something to print ahead of time.
Okay. I could possibly send you tomorrow then, Sue. We'll yeah.
Oh, bless you.
I'll do my
Thank
best.
you.
No problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Got
Pa.
some keen learners around here, Pa. So
Thank you.
yeah. We'll see you Thursday. Thank you, everyone.
Long last.
Long lad.
Long last.